Hi guys, welcome to the latest podcast of Yarn and Black. Today I've got a really special friend of mine on Helen. I'll introduce you to her in a moment. But first I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're currently meeting on. I'm here broadcasting from the land of the Wurundjeri people in Ball and Q. And I'd like to pay respect to their elders past, present, and those future leaders, the future warriors that are coming through that are going to help lead us into the future. And I would like to acknowledge any other Aboriginal people that are joining us today, including my wonderful guest, Helen. How are you?
G'day, how are you, AG?
Good. Hey, we might as well get started. So can you tell us who you are, where you're from?
Okay, well, my name's Helen Farquhar. I'm a proud Wotjobaluk Gunditjamara Aboriginal woman. I'm originally from Ballarat, but at the moment I'm living in Braybrook in Melbourne. Soon I'll be relocating to the Grampians to run my business completely from there, which is YarninBlak. I'm a Mercy of Cultural Arts.
Cool. Well, let's start with your business straight up front. How did you get into business? How did you get into the business, and what does the name actually mean?
Okay, well, YarninBlak is because I'm Wotjobaluk Gunditjamara, so I've just taken the last pronouns of each word and reversed them. So Gunditjamara, Wotjobaluk. But as it turns out, Balak means group, and Jamara doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah.
But it sounds good. How I got into it was I actually had a couple of classic cars, and I'm a professional licensed driver, but I had one of them stolen and I can't replace it. So, and the other one damaged when I sent it to get some work done. So I haven't been able to continue with the wedding cars. Focusing on the fact that I've already got the license, the accredited license, which is quite difficult to get. I looked at some other options and came up with tourism.
That's tourism's a big thing in the country, but there's not a lot of Aboriginal tourism, is there?
There's very few, and there's none at all like mine. Mine's 100% female owned and operated, obviously, but also that when I get going, I'll be employing only Aboriginal women that are re-establishing after leaving domestic violence situations. So it'll be 100% women based, and also out there promoting the fact that it's not traditional for our people to have domestic violence go on. It's not okay for it to go on, and it's not okay anywhere in Australia or the world.
And I think one thing I do in cultural awareness training, and I know that you'll agree with this, but why is it with family violence, it becomes an Aboriginal woman's problem when the majority of the violence that's actually perpetrated is not
perpetrated by the men? Yeah, no, I engaged with JIRA. I was actually at JIRA yesterday. JIRA's been fantastic for me, good for me, good to me. Formerly the Aboriginal Women's Family Violence Legal Service, now JIRA. And I asked yesterday, we talked about yesterday, part of my business, and I was so excited, told them about, my news and moving up there and everything. And we talked about the fact that it's women that it focuses on. And I've said, I've been asked, why won't I employ Aboriginal men? And it's not that I don't realise that Aboriginal men and non-Aboriginal men are engaged in domestic violence and as victims as well. But for me, I'm an Aboriginal woman. When I was going through it, which is, I've been out of it now 3 years, but, before that, 34 years in it, I know that if you leave, you don't have the money to stay somewhere. You can't stay away. You have no choice. You've got to go back. So for me, it's a matter of I'm a woman. I know what it's like to be an Aboriginal woman, experiencing that sort of circumstance and how hard it is. And so that's my focus. But at the same time, I agree with what you're saying. Perpetrators are unfortunately mostly Aboriginal men. And I believe that's because our men they don't know how to be men now, because they've lost all their roles, traditional roles. They used to be the warriors and the hunters, and they used to provide for the tribe. And now, most times, it's a woman that can get the job. And what does the Aboriginal man have to offer in his mind? So I think that's the problem, and it becomes the woman's problem mainly because most of the time, I think the percentage is like 87 or 88% victims are Aboriginal women. So of course, it's a large part our problem, our business, but. I think a lot needs to be focused more on teaching men or telling men that it's okay not to be employed and not to be the hunter and the warrior anymore, because we don't have that anymore. But it's not okay to not be manly.
Yeah. I want to ask you a couple of questions. Where did you grow up?
Ballarat, in a little tiny town just outside Ballarat called Miners Rest.
Yeah. When you went to school, how much Aboriginal studies did you study at school?
Oh, believe it or not, my father was white, very rich, white, rich man, and my mother was Aboriginal, but would never recognise that she was raised from the age of 3 weeks old by her very racist English grandmother. So she was quite racist, and because she grew up in Dimbula, the Aboriginal people up there actually wiped them. They ignored the 4 girls that had been left orphaned after their mother had died. So for Mum, she was pretty screwed up in the head. And she never admitted she was Aboriginal. I never realised that we were Aboriginal, just thought we were darker than other people. So when I went to school and started primary school, there were 26 of us in the one room with the most wonderful teacher I've ever had. And from prep to grade 6, I was in prep. One of her kids was in grade prep with me. Her eldest was in grade 6, and she herself was an Aboriginal woman, which I didn't realise until well after I'd finished high school. So for me, like, I thought that, when the kids were saying ABO, Abo, I kept saying to them, no wonder you can't read and write. Alphabets, A, B, C, O comes a long way further down. So I didn't realise that it was racism, because I'd never experienced it before. And of course, so much as I laugh about it now, and didn't realise until much later that Mrs. Cole herself was an Aboriginal woman. So I didn't experience Aboriginal culture, but she made sure that we did a lot of learning about some Aboriginal people. And, we used to have the convict days where people would dress up as convicts, and we'd also have, the robbers that would come in and rob the school and that sort of thing. But we'd also have people there dressed in native like clothing and that. And didn't realise that was Aboriginal culture, and we were learning.
Yeah. Question: what does Aboriginality mean to you?
Yeah, that's a real good thing. A good question. A lot of people say that they like the term First Nations. I don't. I get why people don't like Aboriginal or Indigenous, because it's generic to everywhere. But really, it's associated now with us more than anywhere else in the world. So I get both sides of it. Aboriginality to me is something that I've learned to become one with. I didn't realise that I was Aboriginal. Didn't know I was Aboriginal till I was well after 13. And again, even in that situation, my mother looking very, very much Aboriginal because of her experiences, she was against anything Aboriginal. And once I found out, I thought, well, that explains why I'm different to everybody else. Yeah. And I became proud of it and started to learn whatever I could, and still continue to do that. Like, I'm fascinated with our culture. Nobody knows everything about being Aboriginal, and everybody's got their own perspective. But let's face it, there's so much culture and history and fascinating facts with our people all the way back. So Aboriginality to me is a lot of things, but I guess it's now me voicing that I'm Aboriginal. I'm proud of it, despite the fact that I now realise that racism is still huge. Having experienced it when I started promoting this, I experienced such racist comments that it had me in tears, to be honest. And I thought, okay, this isn't going to make a difference, because my theory is not only will it help myself and other Aboriginal women, it'll help the regional communities, non-Indigenous and Indigenous. It'll promote land care and conservation, but it also has the ability with the art and the enjoyable experiences for people to become more unbiased, if you like, and have positive experiences and opinions of our people. So, to unite Australians as a non-racist one, I guess. And I started thinking, gosh, am I on the right track? This isn't going to work. And then I thought, no, you just got to not look at it and not listen to them and not respond, especially don't respond. Yeah. Which is difficult for me. So yeah, it's a lot of things, but hopefully it's becoming Australian, but being recognised as the first people here in Australia.
Yeah. The word cultural safety gets thrown around quite a lot. What makes you feel culturally safe when you go to services?
Believe it or not, and I'm here at the Braybrook Library, and I don't mind saying it, the local agency that deals with the Aboriginal, I guess, community here, that I don't have anything to do with them anymore. I won't name them, but they operate out of the library. Yeah. But yeah, no, I won't be involved with, especially an Indigenous agency that's racist towards either ourselves or other people. It's not okay to be racist in any way, shape or form to anyone. I don't think it's okay at all, and I won't work with an agency like that. So for me, a lot of this time you'll get cultural safety and lateral violence and all that. It's thrown around by black fellas who are just bullshitting because they themselves want to control the situation. And most of the time, unfortunately, a lot of the crap that I call comes from black fellas.
Yeah.
We're our own worst enemies. We really are.
Why do you think that is the case? Because and I think that for a lot of non-Indigenous people, they think, oh, Aboriginal people must all get along.
Yeah, God. And I think you're right. And I think they think that we're all the same. And and again, this is why I think this podcast is great. And I'm really impressed that you've been doing it. And if you're not a black fella, and even if you are a black fella, it's really hard to comprehend our mind. Because when we're like, it's like families, I guess. I don't have anything to do with mine if I can help it.
Yeah.
Black fellas, a lot of the time it's because they're scared. Look, I come from the Clark family, so and I've got a bit of a reputation for standing up and saying what's got to be said and not backing down. And if that worries people, and it should, that's okay. I'm all right with that. If I don't have to say anything, I'll stay to myself. But if it needs to be said, and if somebody or someone in the community is being disadvantaged, especially by an agency, especially by an Indigenous agency, then they'll hear from me, and so will everyone else. Like, it's not okay. And why is it that I think people see other people as possibly threats to their jobs, threats to the crap that they get away with currently, threats to the way they behave. And if they're behaving in the wrong way, then they should see people like me as a threat. Yeah. It's not okay.
I think the other thing people think about is, and you'd understand this, people are just finding out about their Aboriginality.
Yeah. Nobody has the right to question anybody else's Aboriginality. Nobody. And this, people saying, I thought that people would say, well, how much or what percentage of that? Nobody has the right to say that to you. No, it doesn't matter if they're black, they're white, doesn't matter what colour they are. And you don't ever have to justify who you are. If you're Aboriginal, you're Aboriginal.
Yeah. If someone came to you and said, look, I've just found out about my Aboriginality, I want to know more, where would you suggest they start?
Depending on if they've been part of the Stolen Generations or not, Link Up, JIRA. There's a lot of great agencies around now. Some, Bells, sometimes with Bells is much better than it used to be. The health service now has got a lot of community programs going on. Look, people, I don't know everything about being Aboriginal, and just because I'm a Clark and from a big family doesn't mean that I know everything about everything else either. Some members of my family do have the ability to be able to tell you and trace it back and tell you if somebody's this family or that family. I don't. I'm learning it. But, that doesn't mean that I think that I'm capable or qualified to do it. But I would send them to elders in the community, depending on, again, who their family was or who they thought their family was.
Yeah. So you've got kids?
Yeah, unfortunately.
How much Aboriginal studies are they learning at school now compared to...
Yeah, look, they're all adults now, and two of mine wear a pale skin. Doesn't mean they're any less black on the inside or the outside. But all the way through primary school and high school, so many times they'd come home and they'd have done a project or an essay or whatever on what we see as the correct traditional and history of Australia. And I've always had it in my place, like the cool and deadly Koori corner, because we're Koori, right? And I think it's important that kids grow up knowing and embracing who they are and being proud of who they are. So they'd write their essays and that sort of thing. I remember with one of my girls marching up to the primary school, and she'd actually been given an F on her essay. She put a lot of work into it, and it was really well written, and it talked about before colonisation and then a little bit after colonisation, but the fact that Australia hadn't been terra nullius and blah blah blah, and she'd been failed on it. And so I think she's grade 5, and I went up there and I said, this isn't okay. And so they ended up calling in the Ketos or the career education people back then. Yeah. And look, I don't know that it changed all of the system at that stage, but I think that it's, things like that have started to lead to the change in the curriculum now. 20 years from now, my grandkids and my great-grandkids have got, the kids in kinder now, in 20 years, by the time they're having kids themselves, nobody's going to look at somebody as black, white, yellow, or anything else because of what they're doing in the kindergarten curriculum. Everybody's the same, and it's fantastic. I don't know why the older schools can't embrace that sort of thing, but eventually it's got to lead to less racist opinions and a better Australia for everyone.
Yeah. Now, I know you mentioned elders a couple of times. What makes a person an elder in your point of view?
Yeah, look, and again, part of the reason I work with the agency that works out of the Braybrook Library, I facilitated, and I'm quite proud of it actually. I'm a bit upset. I'm still going to work on coming back and doing it each year. But for the last couple of years, I've been facilitating NAIDOC events, some free NAIDOC events here in Braybrook for the local community, because it used to be such a tight knit community, and it's important to me that people know I'm Aboriginal and that other Aboriginal people know that they should be proud. And we've got nothing to be ashamed of. We've got so much to be proud of. And so I've been doing like NAIDOC events and getting free gifts and like giving everybody like little packages and that. And people say, why do you give things away? Well, our people have always been generous people. That's who we are. And, I think it's a celebration. NAIDOC's a celebration of us and for us. And as many people as we can encourage to embrace that, of every nationality, the better it is for us. And so I was asked, well, I had said to me, not last year, but the year before when I did the first one, I facilitated it, and the lady was facilitating with me. We both volunteered. We didn't get paid for it. She's Vietnamese, and there was some comments made about she shouldn't be here. She's Vietnamese. She shouldn't be involved. Well, hello. Like I said, racism is not okay to us or from us. And then, like, after doing the faux possum skin balls and all that sort of thing, and did a lot of stuff donated so everybody could do some sort of activity. So we had canvases and art stuff, and it was fantastic. Bunnings and Officeworks have been fantastic in donating stuff for every year, and also Pay It Forward Melton. So I went along, and I was finishing all that. I get so busy because so many people come up and want to do the possum skin balls and that sort of thing, because I take my pelts and that along, and it's great. They're so interested in it. And I waited until everyone had finished eating, and then I got up to get something to eat, and I was told, well, you're going to have to wait because like the elders will go before you. And I said, okay, well, that's fine. Sat back down. When the food came back out, got up again, and again was told, no, you're not an elder, you'll have to wait. And I said, well, I can accept that you think I'm not an elder, but the fact of the matter is I've just facilitated this event with you, all of the activities. I've lived in this area for like 20 years, and you people haven't even been working in this agency for like 5 years, and you've been ranting and raving about my co-facilitator, because of her being Vietnamese. I said, how disrespectful can you people actually be? And yes, so to me, an elder, it's got nothing to do with age, and it's got to do with respect. Like, and the fact that in the community, most people will consider me an elder. I'm not sure that I am, but I'm working on it. I think it's people who actually contribute and have the ability to influence or to make other people aware that they're good people, that Aboriginal people are good people, and yeah. So I'm not really sure what I think an elder is, but I'm not sure that I'm actually there yet. But I think I'm fairly well there. But,
yeah.
And of course, it's everybody's different opinion. But when you come to somewhere like somebody who's doing a lot of community stuff and is involved deeply in the community, is well known in the community, when you have an agency that will turn around and behave like that towards that person because of their fear or dislike or envy or whatever you want to call it, and publicly do it, that's not okay.
Okay, well, no, it's not. No. Another question I've got is the term reconciliation. It's a big word, but what does it mean to you?
Oh, well, if you're doing it in tax and that sort of thing, it's adding up and working out what you owed, isn't it, at the end of the year? Look, I think reconciliation, again, I've been involved in the Maribyrnong, they call it the Mr. Rajap or something, the Maribyrnong Council's Reconciliation Action Plan Committee for a long time. It still hasn't been put in place, and I'm involved in quite a few other RAPs and that sort of thing. I don't think there's any point in doing a RAP, and even though by law now everybody has to have a RAP through the Reconciliation Action Plan. For instance, I work at Homesglen at the moment, right? And we've just launched the Homesglen RAP and all that sort of thing, and all this information and blah, 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 and put all this publicity out there. My mandatory training, and anybody else that's joining at Homesglen and still having to update it, I just did it again last week, there's still nothing on there about Indigenous culture. So there's no commitment to the RAP. So if you're not going to be committed and you're only doing it because you have to by law, then it's just pointless.
Yeah. Do you still think that there are organisations that tokenistically do things, but they think they're doing it correctly, but really we're looking at it and it is tokenistic?
Yeah, as I just said, it's a matter of like the promotion that came from the recent RAP launch that we had and everything else. And I was so hopeful because I was sure that Homesglen, and I'm sure that Homesglen are actually committed to it, to making it genuine. But I think that, until I pointed out, you still have nothing on your mandatory training and induction training for new employees and updating that each year about Indigenous culture, then how committed can you really be?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of the places get funds from Reconciliation Australia, which makes it even more difficult for it to be genuine.
what there's different levels of raps as well. Like some people know this, some people don't. Got the reflect and the innovative, and there's two more after that. I can't. The stretch rap. Why is it that you think organizations sometimes even get stuck on reflect and struggle to kind of get to innovate or strength or stretch?
I think because of the vast difference between what their opinion of Aboriginal culture or what it should be or what it is completely different to what it actually looks like in real life.
Yeah. And I think you're right when you say that you need to have the right drivers in organizations and the right staff into doing some of this stuff, because I personally have found with some organizations when I've helped with the RAP is that some people think that RAP activities are separate to what they normally do in daily business.
Yeah.
And the reality is, and I hear them and they go, oh, we haven't done much on our RAP at all lately because we haven't had time. And it's like, but isn't part of reconciliation what you do in your normal job? You don't have to stop and go, oh, now I've got to reconcile, right?
Yeah, 9 to 5 job and the RAP's like 5 to 6.
Yeah. Or every second Thursday we better reconcile with the community.
Yeah, no, and I think that's part of the problem is that, and because Reconciliation Australia now makes some places like educational institutes and that, like Homestead, they all by law have to have a RAP. But the thing is, having it and actually having it where it means something and it's actually doing something are completely different things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all well and good to write down this, and this, but in reality, is it actually being implemented? And is the other tasks in the action plan and the agenda and that actually things that are going on and occurring? And unfortunately, you would know this as well as I do. If you're Indigenous, you're sort of like on every RAP and every Aboriginal committee or every Aboriginal activity in existence, and you're just so run off your feet and like overworked and underwhelmed with it, and still not really heard.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting that you just said that last bit, and we sometimes still not even heard. Is that
definitely.
We're invited to the table to be part of the conversations, but often they don't want to hear what we've got to say.
Yeah, we're invited to the table because we're Indigenous and it looks good on paper in a lot of cases. And that's the problem.
Yeah. And we need to start changing that to going, if you want Aboriginal representation, I'm not going to agree with you. And I've had to say that to organisations myself.
Or I'm not going to be shut up and silenced.
Yeah, you've asked me to give you an Aboriginal opinion. I'm telling you this is not correct or this is not right. And you're shutting me straight down. And
yeah, or not listening. And like I've been saying for the last 2 years, you need to start going for the NAIDOC grants much earlier and still haven't had still, I will do it next year. It's like,
and it never comes.
Yeah.
Now, a question I ask all my guests is that if I gave you a magic wand, and I've got one right here.
And it so suits you too, AJ. I think I've seen the dress that you wear with that.
Yes. Yeah. My Galinda number.
I'm positive.
If I gave you my magic wand and $1 zillion, which I don't actually have on me, but if I could.
Oh, okay, but POD's okay.
Yeah. I'll just transfer it PayPal. I'll do it to you.
Yeah, okay. Oh no, I don't do PayPal.
I don't do PayPal. Okay.
You
said the old black fella. It's in the mail. Check. It's in the mail.
Yeah, that's why I said POD. Well, I know where you live, though. I'll come and visit.
Yeah. It's in the mail. But if I could give you $1 zillion and actually say, hey, fix something in Indigenous affairs, what would you want to start? Where would you start?
Child protection. Child protection and youth justice would be the big ones for me. I volunteer with the Department of Justice and Commission for Safety of Children and Young People, and I do at the moment only the Parkville visits because Cherry Creek's too big for me until I have back surgery. But the youth justice detention centre visits, I was there on Wednesday actually, and look, the amount of kids, there were 17 kids in there on Wednesday, and there were 84 kids all up, but 17 of them Aboriginal. And how do I look? It's these kids. A lot of them, they'll say, oh, I can't wait until I get old enough to get put into adult jail. Well, and I have the coordinator make a bit of a fuss about the things that I say to them, because I'll say to them, why do you want to do that? It's, it's not what our mob do. It's not traditional for us. Yeah, it's what's going on at the moment, but it's a waste of your life. Do you really want to spend the rest of your life behind bars doing nothing? Like, seriously, I'm sure you're talented at sport or music or art. If not, then get off the farm and get an education and get a job and get on with it.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many of our kids that don't realise that there's another way of life. You don't have to be drunk or off your head or behind bars. That's not any way for anyone to live. And our young people especially, I say to them all the time, we need our young men especially on the outside, learning to be role models and learning to be men and showing the others how to be so.
Yeah. And you've raised a big point there that I don't think a lot of non-Indigenous people get. And that is 50% of 50% of Aboriginal kids are currently in the child protection system as we speak right now.
But yeah, in placements that have nothing to do with their family or the communities.
Yep. And then we've got another group of kids. So 50% already in child protection. Then we've got another group of kids that are actually in juvenile justice settings.
Yep.
And
they cross over.
Yeah. And it's actually quite high. When you gave those figures a second ago, what did you say? 17?
84 that were in there in total, and 17 of them are Aboriginal. Like, that equates to about
a quarter,
37%, 38%.
That's huge,
isn't it? And yeah, and yet usually there's about 17 in there, and it's a much lower figure overall. So there's usually about 63 kids in there, and it's still between 13 and 17 Indigenous. So it goes up to about nearly 50%. So yeah, they're not just huge; they're mind-boggling.
Yeah. So with this money, zillions of dollars,
what would I do? Okay. Well, first of all, I'd start with the child protection workers. I've been involved in it, and I'm really proud of it, actually. And I'll name who I am. I'm Pearl. It's de-identified, and I couldn't even work out who I was to start with. It took me a while because I'm Wotjobaluk Gunditjamara, and I couldn't work out where the Wotjobaluk part was. And then I realised, because Wotjobaluk goes back to Wurja, and I said, oh, I'm Pearl, aren't I? But that took me a while. But it's called the Black Women's Healing Project. And there's quite a few of us. I won't identify anyone else. I don't mind identifying me, but that's okay. I'm Pearl. But the other women that have been in there, we've all got stories of child protection or domestic violence and justice and like things that are full on. And so where I would start, and part of this Black Women's Healing Project, it was through VU with Karen Jackson and Paola Bella, and what they're actually doing is they've now produced the booklet, and we were given a copy of it a couple of months ago. They're now delivering the outcomes and teaching people that are coming along in as child protection workers and youth justice workers and that sort of thing, delivering the outcomes to them, and so that it can change the way that they practice, basically. I mean, a child with no shoes on and a dirty face isn't necessarily an abused child. Let's face it. And so I would start with things like that, more projects and more actual fact telling, where the child protection workers realise, and having had kids in care myself after my youngest had her stroke and she was placed in care, and then fighting the DHS and back for so long, and she ended up being molested in care quite a few times, and then talking to the team leader who didn't like me and I don't like her, enough said, and she said to me, look, I was wrong. I knew what was going on, and it's like, well, I'm not going to forgive you. I'm not going to give you absolution. You shouldn't be in that system, and even admitting it now, you're still in that system. You're not going to do anything that's going to change or impact on what you may be held accountable for whilst you're still in that system. So get out of the system and let decent people who know what they're doing, or who are at least not prepared to allow that sort of thing go on, to be in that system. Unfortunately, the child protection system is something that we need. Some kids aren't looked after and deserve to be looked after. And for me, a kid will always be paramount. I'll stay out of pretty much everyone else's business unless I have to be involved in it. But if it's a kid, I don't care. If it's something wrong, then I'll be involved in it. But the child protection workers that are in there, they're so stuck in their ways. They've got no concept of what it's like to be, first of all, a young woman with a child, let alone a young Aboriginal woman. And let's face it, a lot of our young women, unfortunately, have already experienced child protection removal and been placed in foster cares or in resi homes. and that in itself is a whole different world. So they're already being exposed to the worst of the worst. They have no concept of parenting themselves. So if they don't know how to parent, don't take their kids off them. Show them how to be good parents.
Yeah.
Work with families.
Yeah. Now, I've known you about 20 years. I was trying
to... God, hasn't it gone quick? I'm surprised I've only seen you in one of those outfits.
Yeah, I know. You make me laugh.
But I don't go out much at night.
No.
You've gone so red.
I just, it's my pink broom that, I fly because the green one's taken, apparently.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. You can wear whichever colour you like. You go.
Yeah.
Whatever. You got my permission.
As I said, I've known you for about 20 years, and you've always been very passionate. You've always been very outspoken. And I've seen you being knocked down a few times, but I've also seen you get back up and fight for people.
What I believe in.
If you believe in, and I want to say this in a way that not everybody likes, or not even say it that way, but like
jealousy's a curse.
even if you didn't personally like somebody, what I do see from you is that whether you like them or not, if you see that they're treated unjustly, I've seen you fight for them.
Yep.
And that's look, I've seen that you've done in the 20 years that I've known. Always stand up for the underdog, or even if that person was bullying you, the fact you see them being bullied, you stand up for them.
Rather than for them. Go. Yeah, look, I guess it's just who I am. Like, and let me just point out that you've seen me knocked down, not physically, like he's talking in theoretically.
Theoretically, yeah.
But for me, it's a matter of, look, and I never used to be outspoken, and I used to be fairly quiet, and that's, believe it or not. But it's a matter of people need to hear what I've got to say, and I'll take on whatever anybody else has got if they don't, themselves think they can, or if they don't have the voice, or they're too shame, or whatever. And I've got no worries with taking it on. And once I take something on, I take it all away to the best of my ability. And I'm pretty good at what I do. Doesn't matter what I do, and I don't back down. And if I don't win, which doesn't happen often, I'll always still come out with a better situation than started with. And look, I don't need to like someone to be professional, even when I'm not actually working in a role. For me, it's more a matter of how you behave and how you hold yourself in community, whether it's Black community or not. But I consider myself to be a person that's, I can be outspoken, but I can do it in a way that's still socially acceptable.
Yeah. I'm just watching.
Thank you. I take that on as a compliment. Thank you.
It is a compliment. It is a compliment. I've got two final questions for you, and the first one is.
So where's the $1 zillion per se? Hang on.
$1 zillion. Here it is.
And what colour wand do I get?
The choice is yours with $1 zillion. My question is, what would you like people to walk away with from our yarn this afternoon? That
look, Australia is a great country. It really is a fantastic country, and it is a lucky country for so many people. We just need to make sure that everyone realises that for our people, it's not so lucky at the moment. And our people need to realise that we can't sit around and feel sorry for ourselves, because it's not just based on luck or what's gone on. What's happened. We can't change it. It is what it is. Get off your asses. Get on with it. Get an education. Doesn't matter what you're learning. Doesn't matter what you're doing. As long as you're doing something and doing something productive, then you're a good role model and good for yourself and your community and everybody, Black, white, and otherwise. Just get on with it.
Yeah. Good. That's great advice. My last question is, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Where would you like to be? And you can still
hopefully not still waiting for that $1 zillion, AJ.
You can still use $1 zillion if you want.
Where would I? Yeah, look, I hope that this goes well. I'm putting everything I've got into it, because I think it has the potential to impact positively so many people and have such great outcomes. Because I don't want Australians. I don't want to be exposed to racist comments, and I don't want, I wear my t-shirts proudly, and I don't want other people to see that as me saying I'm different or our people are different. I don't want Australia to continue like it is. I want people to be embracing of every culture, especially ours. And I'd like our people to stop being such racist towards our own and detrimentally engaging with our own people. Like, we used to traditionally, we can't have not been. I've said to people, traditionally, whether you go with 10,000 years or 85,000 years, 10,000 is still a bloody long time. We wouldn't be the people that we are if we weren't traditionally loyal and combined and united as one. We wouldn't have all the Dreamtime stories, and we wouldn't have all of the culture and the history, and it wouldn't be who we were if we were like we are now. If we were against each other constantly, that wouldn't be, our history wouldn't be the same. So get back to how we used to be, where we look after each other, where we care about each other. Like traditionally, a child's mother and all of her mother's sisters were her mum, and grandmother was all of her grandmother's sisters as well. Like, and dad was, all of dad's brothers were dad as well. And like traditionally, we couldn't have been like that if we were like we are now, so far against each other. So remember that we're meant to be one, all those different tribes, but we're meant to be one race and loyal. Like, think about ourselves first and think what's good for all of us. It's what I do. Like, if it's for the majority, it's the best thing, then I'll fight for it.
Yeah. Look, I want to say thank you for joining me this afternoon. You know how much I love the work that you do, and I'm always following you on Facebook and LinkedIn.
God, and now that I'm actually going to be moving and I'm going to be out of work, it'll all be volunteer again.
Yeah, but we will advertise all your business, and it would actually see it, and we'll talk about some more projects that we might be able to do ourselves together, which I'm interested in.
Too easy. And well done. Look, I think that this podcast has, again, the ability to change a lot of perspectives and produce good outcomes. Good on you.
So thanks, guys. I'll see you guys at the next podcast. And I thank Helen for joining us. Thanks, Helen.
See ya.